What have I read most recently? Stay tuned and find out. Alright guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Zach with Zacks Books, and today I've got a recent reads for you. 4 books I've read most recently. 2 of these I talked about during Vlogmas on Danielle's channel, and I'm yet to really talk about them on this channel. If I did, then it was just brief or some sort of list maybe. But yes, we will have these books linked down below if you're intrigued with any of them. Also down below is the Bookstagram, the podcast, Danielle's channel, all that other fun stuff, the Patreon, all that stuff. So yeah, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and let's get into these books. All right, first book up is the one I read most recently, and that is Havoc by Christopher Bolin. So sorry if there's a bad glare. We got some snow the other day, so there's some brightness outside. So Havoc, well, what do I got to say about this book other than it is just pure havoc? This is a very good book. I'm going to give my star ratings first. This is a 4-star book, and I honestly was pretty surprised by it. I really knew nothing about going into this book, like almost at all. Quite literally almost nothing. And I finally, like halfway through, I like read the inside flap, and I was like, whoa, okay, so this is like what's going on. So this book, we're following a older woman named Maggie Burkhart, and she is at the Royal Carnac Palace Hotel, and it is in under the hot Saharan sun. So basically what is going on is this older woman has a troublesome past. Her husband passed away, and her daughter passed away. She's got like a troubling past with like, you know, she needs like these meds because something happened with her a while ago, like a long time ago when the husband died and the daughter passed away. And she's basically, what she's been doing is like going to these places and like ruining relationships, or what she sees in her mind is fixing them, like getting somebody out of the relationship, like a husband and a wife who had just gotten married, and the wife was like always out and about, and the husband was like an inside person, like a book person. And then she was like, opposites attract, but like, no, there's no way. So she did things to make them like break up, and she had one incident that went a little too far where the person actually committed a murder and then killed themselves. And so she has been on the run. She's been going to all these other places and doing stuff like this, where that was the only time it ever got that drastic. It usually has always been the other person leaves, they want a divorce, or some dispute happens. But this person went way too far. But when she gets to this hotel, a little boy and his mom show up. And this little boy, if you have ever seen The Omen, I actually have not, but I know it's about like this like boy with like abilities and like gifts. He by no means has like any like abilities or gifts. He's just like a maniacal like child. But the ending of this book, this is a very big psychological book in my opinion, because at the end of it, it really kind of makes you wonder if like maybe, and I don't want to spoil anything, but maybe like she was wrong on perceiving how this boy is. Like, I don't know. Like, the ending of this book was so like, it was like a gut punch, because you think it's going to end one way. There were some things that were a little predictable in this, I will give it that. But otherwise, it was a very solid story, and I really did like this book. And I definitely would recommend this book. It was pretty solid. So there you have Havoc by Christopher Bolin. All right, the second book up is the one that I did a reading vlog on earlier. If you have not seen it, check it out up here, wherever. We're going to link it, whatever. And that is The Fellowship of the Ring by J.R.R. Tolkien. So the first book in the Lord of the Rings book, the trilogy, has been completed, and I have got to say I love this book. I'm giving this 5 stars, and this book is heavy, so I'm just going to set it down. But The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, first book in the trilogy, and there was times where it was sluggish. At the beginning, I will give it that it had some sluggish moments, but when it picked up, once we started meeting the other characters, Gandalf was more involved, Boromir, Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli, and then you have the hobbits. You've got Sam, Frodo, who's like our main hobbit we're following, and then Merry and Pippin. A very fun group. I will say once we get away from it just being the 4 hobbits and we get to the 9, I think it gets a little bit better. Like once they have their meeting and they're trying to figure out what to do with the ring and everything like that. If you don't know what this book is about, it's about this one ring that Bilbo Baggins has, and he passes it on to Frodo, who is like his surrogate son. His parents died a while ago. It's Bilbo's 111st birthday, and like birthdays in this world are different. Like the person whose birthday it is gives the gifts to other people. And he leaves the ring with Frodo, and this ring has abilities. It is the one ring to rule them all. Back a long time ago, rings were made, and this one was made to be like the master ring. And it has very special powers. It draws people to it, and it does evil things. And it's basically, the first book is like knowing the ring, figuring out the people we're going to be playing with in this, set here. There are more people we will meet in this. I've seen the movies. It's been many years since I have, but I will say it's pretty close to the movies are pretty close to what this book was. I will say, without seeing the movies, I probably would have had a harder time with this book. So that definitely helps. But by no means am I saying that the movies are better than the book. Again, I've only read the first book, so I can't vouch for the other 2. But I do plan to read The Two Towers and The Return of the King. I 100% am going to be finishing this series. It was such a good book. So, yeah. There's not much else I could say about it. It's a really good book. I'm at the point, end of book 1. I'm not going to spoil anything. I think that this book is definitely in content. It was the first book I finished in 2025, and it already might be the book of the year. And I feel like I say that almost every year. I always want to start with a banger of a book, and I feel like I don't know what I could have read to top this one. I plan to read Dune and other Harry Potter stuff, so I don't know, but we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, there you have The Fellowship of the Ring by J.R.R. Tolkien, Lord of the Rings Book 1. All right, the next book up is one that we do not have the physical copy of. We checked it out at the library, and we returned it. And so I'm going to be looking at a phone to kind of help me out here. And that is the sequel by Gene Hanth Corlitz. So this is the sequel to A Plot, which was in my top 5 books of 2022 or 2023. I honestly don't remember when that one came out, but it was one of my favorite books of the year. So the sequel is pretty much taking over after, this is the issue I'm going to have with this book, is I can't really talk about much about it because it's a sequel, and if you haven't read the plot, it's going to be hard to kind of talk about this book. But ideally, we're following Anna Williams Bonner, who is the wife of the person from the first book, Jacob Bonner, and basically like how she is coping with what happened to him in the first book, and how there is all this stuff that was going on in terms of like plagiarism and just a whole bunch of stuff that happened in the first book. Basically, it's not directly like similar in this book, but basically the wife writes a book. I think it's called The Afterword. Yeah, it's called The Afterword, and just because she kind of has like some connections and stuff like that, it gets, all this hype, it gets publicized. I think that's the word I want to say. It gets published and becomes this big book. And basically, like, kind of what happens in the first one, kind of similar happens in the second one, where there's these people who keep saying, like, I know what you did, the truth will come out, yada, yada, yada. We learn a bit more about Anna's past with her family and her brother, who is a writer, and, like, the situation that happened with that. And, yeah, it was a pretty solid story. I honestly forgot to give this the star rating. I gave it 4 stars. The plot was better, in my opinion, than this book. And not saying this one was bad. It was still a really solid book. But I'm going to leave it at that just because it's a sequel and I don't want to spoil anything involving the first book. But it was a really good book. I definitely would recommend it. And I'm interested to know if there will be a third book. So, yeah. Good times. There you have the sequel by Jean Hamp Corliss. All right. The final book I'm going to talk about is the one that I read furthest back, which had been earlier in December, and that is Beware the Snowman by R.L. Stine. It is Goosebumps book number 51. One of my goals I had for this year, which if you have not seen my 2025 goals, check it out up here, wherever we have it, link it down below, whatever. I wanted to finish the original 62 Goosebumps books this year. That was one of my goals. I honestly don't even still have a head count of how many I've read. I think I'm maybe at 15 or 20 of them. I think I might be a third of the way done. This one I've did with YouTube, and let me say the voice in that for some of those are pretty bad. And yeah, so regardless, this one is about a girl named Jacqueline, and she used to live with her aunt in Chicago, but they moved to a village that is on the edge of the Arctic Circle. So in this book, she befriends two village kids. I don't remember what their names are. Yeah, I read the Rolanda. I think it was Rolanda and somebody else. Regardless, basically what's going on in this village is there's this entity known as the Snowman who lives on the top of a hill and lives inside of a mountain. And basically he comes down and, well, no, I don't think he comes down, but he's just like this mythical type of entity that not many people have like seen, but it's more of like a belief that there is this thing up there. He has a watcher. It's some older guy. Again, I don't remember his name. These Goosebumps books are short, but they're like not the most memorable, to be perfectly honest. It's a good book though. It's a very good winter read. I think I gave this 3.5 stars, 4 stars. Might have been 3. I honestly don't remember, but it's definitely a good winter book to read because obviously they're in the edge of the Arctic, and so there's like it's very wintry. And the ending, it was a typical Goosebumps ending. It had one of those funny, silly like plot twists or whatever. And I actually thought it was really fun. It was very enjoyable, and definitely was a good book. I don't know. It's a Goosebumps book. These Goosebumps books are those ones where it's like, it's not directed for people my age, but like, and it's still like a good fun read. So it's like hard to like really like rate it. So I don't know. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't one of my favorite Goosebumps, I will say. I'll leave it at that. So yeah, there you have Beware the Snowman by R.L. Stine. Goosebumps. I usually just say Goosebumps, whatever. But yeah, Beware the Snowman. All right, so those are the 4 books I've read, well, most recently, because duh. And again, we'll have them linked down below. What are some books you've read recently? Let me know in the comments down below. And if what are your thoughts on these 4 books? If you've read any of them, do you agree with some of the stuff I said? Do you disagree with any of the stuff I said? Let me know in the comments. And as always, don't forget to check out the other stuff down there. Goodreads, Bookstagram, podcast, Patreon, Danielle's channel, all that fun jazz down there. And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Later.